Hi, this is Andrei Osachuk, and this is Google Sheets data connector for Adobe Analytics. In this video, you will get to know how to work with data sources, how to upload offline data to Adobe Analytics directly from Google Sheets, thanks to this add-on. So, first we will create a template, then we will fill in this template with data, then we will set up an FTP account, and finally load and schedule the data to be sent to Adobe Analytics. So first let's create a template, and as you see, once you have clicked on a link create a template, a new tab was appended to the spreadsheet, and also the sidebar has been switched to a list of variables that are compatible with data sources. So let's first review what we have in the main area. So the template itself contains three areas. The first area is the yellow line, and this is the line where you can type in any type of friendly names for your variables, dimensions, and metrics. The second area is the line highlighted with the gray color, and this is for your information so that you will know which variables you are using for this particular data source. So these lines shouldn't be changed at any time, otherwise the add-on may not work properly. And the main area is here, that starts from the line number 3. So this area is where you will need to enter your data that you want to upload to Adobe Analytics. And on the right hand side you can see lots of variables. All of them are supported by data sources, and if you want to update this template, you can do this with these variables. So for example, let's say that I don't want to have in my template evar1, event1, transaction ID. I can simply delete these columns, and instead, or in addition to these columns, I want maybe to add number of orders, a number of units, and also revenue. So I just click on Add to Sheet button, and these variables will be appended to the template. So this is how you can work with the template. You can always, if you want to, you can reorder the columns. Just make sure that the date column is the first one. And this is probably everything what you need to know about templates. So now a few words about the scenario that I'm going to show you in this video. In the previous videos, we prepared a clickstream data flow, and basically here we uploaded some page views, and one of the metrics or variables that we used was the tracking code. And here we have AdWords and email tracking codes that we used, for example. Then we appended a new tab, and this tab is used for uploading a classification. And as you can see, we prepared a classification for several keys. And now let's consider the scenario when we want to enrich our data in Adobe Analytics with upper funnel data from ad platforms. For example, not only from ad platforms, but from any other type of platforms that are not directly connected to Adobe Analytics. In our case, imagine that for some reason you may not have integration with either DSP or with Google Ads directly, and probably for some reason you can't do this at the moment, but you are happy to regularly upload this data manually. So you know that maybe every month, maybe twice a month, you will export some data from ad platform, you will export some data from your email provider, and then those upper funnel metrics will be uploaded to Adobe Analytics as a data source through these Google Sheets. So in other words, what we will need the tracking code, we will need metrics like impressions, clicks, and ad cost. If this is email marketing, this can be whatever is supported and provided by the email platforms. For example, how many emails were scheduled, how many emails were sent, how many were opened, etc. So I hope this concept is clear, and this is just an example what you can do with data sources. So this is why I will update the template I don't need to have product column. I don't need to have these three columns, so I will delete them. And I will start with the date and tracking code. So basically date is our timestamp that we'll be using. And for the tracking code, for example, page search, we will be using a few events. So for example, I will take event 1661 that will be used for number of impressions and ad cost. So let's add them, and I will also rename them so that it will be clear for me what these events are used for. So add impressions and ad cost. These two will be used for performance marketing. So for email marketing, I will be using some other events that will be 67, 68. For this particular case, I will be using only two. And one of them stands for number of emails that were sent. And the second one, emails opened. So how many emails were viewed, and obviously if we were able to track that. Basically the email platform was able to track that. Okay, so this is our template. So now let's fill it in. So basically the date, similar to how we filled it in for previous workflows, we need to enter the date. So for example, this will be 18th of December 2019. I don't need to specify here the time, but if I want to, I can do this. By the way, again, if you hover the mouse cursor over different variables, you may find there some tips or explanation of the format of what this variable is used for, etc. So do not forget about it. So enter the date, and then I will be first filling in this spreadsheet for paid search, which is in my case AdWords. Then obviously this data have to be exported from the ad platform and then somehow processed so that you will have this format. But for simplicity, for this particular video, I will be typing in this just to demonstrate you how it works. So for example, here we had 1,000 impressions. Our ad cost was, for example, $50 or 50 something else. It depends on the currency that you set for the report suite. Then for the email marketing, obviously this will be 0. We don't need these numbers. And I will just copy and paste the same row, and now it will be email. So just to remind you that email and AdWords are the keys that are used for tracking code or for tracking purposes. And here for email marketing, ad impressions and ad cost obviously will have to be set to 0, and emails sent and opened, so this is something that I need to enter. And for example, this would be 10,000 and opened 8,500. Okay, so pretty much the same I have to do for every day. And this is how it should work. So for example, maybe here we had some other numbers, and I hope you got the idea how it may look like. And when you prepare such a data source, the next step is to upload this data source to Adobe Analytics. And for this purpose, you need to add an FTP. So how to do this? We will need to go back to the main menu and click on the FTP accounts link. And this will add a new tab that will be filled in with your current FTP accounts that you have already saved under your Google account. So basically, it doesn't matter which spreadsheet you will be working with. If you work with this add-on, you will see all the accounts that you have set up. This is convenient because maybe you have different spreadsheets that are used to send the data to the same FTP account. So here, let's add a new FTP. So I advise you to always follow some naming conventions. My naming convention is the following. First, I want to make sure that the prefix tells me what this FTP account is used for, because it can be for classification, it can be for data sources, it can be for something else. So in my case, this is data source, and then if you want, you can also add a suffix or maybe another prefix for report suite. But in my case, I know that this is used only for one report suite. This is why I will not enter something referring to report suite. So I will just add that this is tracking code. So then I will need to enter FTP host username and password. This is something that you will need to find or set up on the back end of Adobe Analytics, and fill it in. And once you have added a new data source, a new FTP account, do not forget to save it. It's essential that you first save the data, otherwise it will not be available for you when you load the data. So save it. All right. So now when the data source is saved, you will see that the password is not shown, and this is done on purpose for security reasons. But if you want to update the name of the FTP account, if you want to update the username, it's not a problem to do that. You don't need to re-enter the password in this case. If you want to update the password, you need to re-enter it and then again click Save. So I also want to remind you that if you want to delete an FTP account, you need to delete the row with that FTP account and again save the FTP. Otherwise, the changes will not be saved. So now I will return my FTP account, and I will again enter the password and save it. Once the FTPs are saved, I advise you to always click on the Hide FTP sheet so that you will not see it. And this is again a good idea for security reasons, especially if you want to share this with your colleagues so that nobody will see the real passwords. All right, so once the FTP is set up, what we need to do is to go to Load and Schedule. So this user interface looks very similar to how it looks for clickstream data workflow. So first you need to select the data sheet the data should be sent from. So in our case, this is data source. And for the FTP accounts, you will need to select the FTP account that you set for this data source. All right, so now basically this is it. This is the minimum what you need to set up prior to load the data to Adobe Analytics. And let's try to do this. I made a small mistake on purpose so that you will see some statuses that may appear that you may face with. So let's load the data and you will see what I'm referring to. Once you have clicked on the Load Now button, the data started processing, and once the data is processed, you will see the status and the date of the processing. And here we have a status failure, meaning that there was a mistake somewhere or a problem, and afterwards you will see the explanation of what was wrong. So here we can see that the username and passwords are incorrect. So I made that mistake on purpose so that you will see what type of statuses may be, and so that you will understand how this works. So now what we need to do is go back to FTPs, and I will replace the FTP credentials with the correct ones. Save FTP, and then hide this sheet. All right, so now I will try again to load the data, and let's click on this button. So now you can see that in addition to the general status that tells you that the data was successfully loaded, and it also shows you the file name the data was uploaded to Adobe Analytics in, and also for every line it shows you the status, because sometimes not every line can be included into the file that will be sent to Adobe Analytics. So here we know that every line that is in our spreadsheet was successfully uploaded to Adobe Analytics. And this is how it works. But basically, we have uploaded the data successfully. Now, let's talk about the options that we have here. The first option is unloaded rows or all rows. So if we click again on Load Now, you will see that nothing will happen with the data. You can see that the general status tells you that no data was loaded at that time, and that also shows you when the data was processed. Why the data wasn't loaded? Because all the line items in the table in your data were loaded previously. And this is used to avoid duplicated uploads to Adobe Analytics. Because if you have uploaded something, why do you need to upload it again? But if you really have such a case, and there are some cases, but I'm pretty sure that in your case, maybe you will always use only unloaded rows. But anyway, if you understand that you may want to load the data more than once, you need to switch to all rows. Now, if I click on the Load Now button, you will see that for every line, there will be a new date or timestamp under the column B. So let's do this, and this will mean that every line will be uploaded again. So we can see that the file was successfully loaded, we can see that the time has been updated, and the status tells us that all the lines were loaded. Now, let's talk about scheduling. Sometimes you really want your data to be loaded automatically on schedule. And let's imagine the following scenario. For email marketing, we have our forecast. What this forecast tells us is how many emails we plan to send in the future. And maybe this is our kind of target, operational target, that we should send, for example, I don't know, 100,000 emails for next month. Maybe this is your business target, like, for example, how many conversions should happen from those emails, or how many leads or how much revenue you should get from this or that campaign. And if you have such numbers that you planned or set as targets, you will need to upload them with future dates. But the thing is that when you upload the data sources with the dates that are in the future, these data sources will not be processed by Adobe Analytics by design, because only the data sources with the dates in the past can be processed. And in this case, you would need to manually load almost every day the new data if you want to have this synchronized with your reports. And this is not convenient. And now I'm going to show you how you can automate it with this add-on. For this purpose, I will create a new sheet. So I will create a new sheet. We'll go back to dimensions and metrics, and I will add the variables date, tracking code, and I will add one event for email marketing specifically that will be used for forecasted number of emails. So this will look like this. So now I will also rename the tab so that it will be clear what this data source is. And I will enter here email. Obviously, the email ID or tracking code will be everywhere in this table. And this will be forecasted number of emails sent. And here, for example, I will enter some values. Obviously, this is something that I have to forecast first, but this is just for example. So something like that. And as for the dates, today is 29th of December. So we'll let's emulate this like we started from 20th of December 2019. And what if the next line is in the future? So for example, this will be 1st of January 2020 and further days. So if now we will try to load this data, you will see that only first line will be processed because 20th of December is in the past, while the other dates are in the future and they can't be processed by data source. So let's try to load this to the same FTP. Sorry, I forgot that the datasheet should be now data source forecast emails. All right, so now what you can see that the data was processed and was uploaded to Adobe Analytics, but the file included only one line, which is this one, that has status loaded. The other lines have status skipped. This means that these lines were not sent to Adobe Analytics at the time the spreadsheet was processed, just because the dates are in the future. However, if you come back to the spreadsheet on the 2nd of January and will click Load Now, you will see that a few other lines will be loaded successfully. So on the 2nd of January, these two lines will be loaded successfully, just because these dates already either in the past or one of the dates is today and in that particular day. But the other lines will not be loaded, they will still be with the status skipped. Now imagine that you may want to load this manually, and in this case you will need to open this sheet every day or every week and click the button. It's not convenient. And what you can do instead, you can schedule this. And you can schedule this either to be processed hourly or daily. In my case, in this scenario, it's enough to set daily. So what this will mean, every day the infrastructure will process this spreadsheet automatically, and obviously those lines that can be loaded to Adobe Analytics will be loaded. The other lines will still be in the status skipped, and they will be processed at the next iteration, at the next job, when this schedule will be activated. So now let's try to activate this schedule option. And once you clicked on this button, you will see that there will be a list of available scheduled jobs for data loads. So now we can see that this is the sheet or the tab name telling us what was scheduled. Here we can see the option, which means that only unloaded rows will be uploaded. Then we can see to what FTP the data is going to be loaded. Then we can see the scheduled. This is daily. If you have more than one jobs, you will see them in the list here in this area. If you don't want to load this data automatically, maybe one day you understood that all the data already loaded, so what you can do, you can delete this job. Click on this red button and the schedule will be deleted. So this is how it works. So just to summarize, when you want to load data sources, you need to use these three links plus FTP accounts, and you can start with a template. Then you can update the template the way you want. Just make sure that the first line is something that you can update the way you want, and the second line shouldn't be changed at any time. The blue columns will appear after the data is loaded. These two columns are not included in the template, so only the lines with or the columns with the yellow color are included in your data load, and you can load the data either manually or automatically with the schedule. And the only thing that you need also to set up here is the FTP account the data should be sent to. This is how data sources work here in this data connector for Adobe Analytics add-on for Google Sheets. Hope this was helpful. Thank you for watching.